Ever find yourself wondering what it really means to be a better human being? Especially now with AI changing, well, pretty much everything.
It's a huge question.
Huge. And it's the question at the heart of this deep dive as we explore Carlos Goga's Dancing Our Way to Human AI Consciousness.
It's a fascinating read, really different from a lot of the AI stuff out there.
Totally. It's not your typical, robots are going to take over kind of thing.
Not at all. Goga's not about the fear-mongering. He's asking us to really look at ourselves, as humans. How do we evolve alongside these incredible technological advancements? How do we step up our game?
I love that. It's like he's issuing a challenge. And get this, he uses dance as a framework to explore our relationship with AI.
It's not as far out as it might sound at first.
Right. I know when I first heard it, it's like, dance. But it totally makes sense as you get deeper into his thinking.
Yeah, the dance metaphor is really clever when you think about it. It's not about us controlling AI or AI controlling us. It's about a partnership.
Yeah.
Like finding that balance, that back and forth, learning to move together.
So it's a collaborative relationship.
Exactly. And Goga argues that this kind of collaborative approach is key if we really want to unlock our full potential as humans in the age of AI.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? Like, how do we become better humans in this whole brave new world?
Well, Goga lays out a framework. He calls it the 5 levels of the self. He says we experience life through these interconnected layers.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What are the levels?
So there's the situational self. That's basically about how you navigate the world around you, how you interact with others, that kind of thing.
Makes sense. So it's like the context of our lives.
Right. Then there's the mental self. So that's your thoughts, your beliefs, how you process information.
The way we think. Got it.
Then you've got the emotional self. So all those feelings we experience, joy, sadness, anger, the whole spectrum.
Right. Our feelings. What else? We're 3, right?
Yep. 3 down, 2 to go. The next one's pretty straightforward, the physical self.
Our bodies. Pretty important part of the equation.
Can't forget the body. And then lastly, things get a little more, well, let's just say it's a bit less tangible. It's the energetic self.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Tell me more about this energetic self.
It's where we tap into those bigger questions. Purpose, connection, our place in the universe.
That feeling of being part of something larger than ourselves.
Exactly. And here's the thing, these levels aren't separate. They all work together, influencing and shaping each other.
It's like an intricate dance within ourselves.
I like that. It all comes back to dance.
So we've got these different levels of self.
Mm-hmm.
But how do they actually play out in the real world in our actions?
That's where Goga's concept of the skeleton of the self comes in.
The skeleton. So he's giving us a blueprint for how our thoughts and feelings and everything else actually translate into outcomes.
Precisely. And he breaks it down into 5 key elements: attention, intention, attitude, action, and impact.
Okay, I'm following you so far. Give me an example of how that works.
Sure. Let's say you become aware of something, maybe a social issue, that really grabs your attention.
Right.
So you've paid attention. Now, that attention sparks something in you. You form an intention, a desire to learn more about it, to maybe even get involved.
Right, so you're motivated to do something.
Exactly. And you approach it with a certain attitude, let's say a positive can-do attitude.
You're optimistic about making a difference.
Right. So you take action. Maybe you volunteer, maybe you donate, whatever feels aligned with your intention.
You're putting those thoughts and feelings into action.
And all of that, ideally, leads to an impact, however big or small. You've contributed something, made some kind of positive change.
Okay, that makes sense on a personal level. But here's where things get really mind-blowing. Goga argues that this skeleton framework, it's not just for us as individuals, it scales up.
To institutions, to societies, even to humanity as a whole.
Whoa. So you're saying everything from a small team to global issues has its own skeleton.
It's like those Russian nesting dolls. You've got the individual level, the nano, then you zoom out to the micro, which could be your family, your workplace, a community group.
Okay, so like smaller groups of people.
Then there's the macro, that's society at large with all its complexities.
Wow. And then the biggest picture of all.
The mundo level, that's all of us, humanity facing global challenges together.
So each of these levels, from the individual to the global, has its own skeleton, its own set of attention, intention, attitude, action, and impact elements. And they all influence each other.
It's all interconnected, like a massive, intricate...
Dance.
Exactly, a dance with a whole lot of moving parts.
That's a great way to put it. And just like in a real dance, sometimes those parts, those different levels, they bump up against each other.
Right, they clash.
Which brings us to Goga's concept of the narrative game. This is where things get really interesting, in my opinion.
It's all about stories, isn't it? The stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell each other.
The stories we live by.
Exactly. And we're not just talking about fairy tales here. We're talking about the narratives, the beliefs that shape how we see the world.
And how we act in it.
Absolutely. Our cultural backgrounds, political ideologies, even the stories we tell ourselves about our own lives, they all feed into this.
They're powerful, these narratives.
They really are. They influence our intentions, our attitudes. Ultimately, they shape our actions.
And here's the thing. We don't all share the same narratives. Right?
Not even close, which is where things can get, well, a little messy.
To put it mildly, I mean, how many times have you seen like a totally innocent conversation on social media just completely spiral out of control?
All the time, right? Goga describes this clash of narratives as he calls it the narrative game. And it often starts subtly. You know, you're talking to someone and you realize, oh, they see this differently than I do.
They have different values, different experiences.
Exactly. And that's the first stage. Just recognizing the difference.
Okay, so we're acknowledging that there are different perspectives.
Right. And from there, it can go one of two ways. We can either embrace that difference, maybe try to learn from it.
Be open to seeing things from another angle.
Exactly. Or we can dig in our heels, get defensive.
Because my way is the right way.
Unfortunately. That's the next stage of the narrative game, when we start believing our narrative is not just different, but somehow better than theirs.
That's where judgment creeps in.
Big time. And that's when things can really start to go downhill.
It's like a slippery slope, right? First, it's just we see things differently.
Yeah.
Then it's my way is the right way. And pretty soon, we've completely stopped seeing the other person as, a complex human being.
Their own valid experiences.
Exactly.
And that's the danger zone. That's dehumanization. The final and most destructive stage of the narrative game.
When we basically reduce someone to a caricature of their beliefs.
We strip them of their humanity.
It's a scary thought, really. And it's not just happening on a personal level either.
Oh, absolutely not. Think about the polarization we see in politics, the cultural divides, even global conflicts.
All fueled by these clashes of narratives.
This struggle for dominance.
And then you add technology to the mix and...
Whoa, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Right, like AI is giving these narratives an exoskeleton, amplifying their reach and impact in ways we've never seen before.
It's incredible, really, when you think about how fast information and misinformation can spread online.
At lightning speed. It's like wildfire.
And AI is changing how these narratives are created, how they're controlled. I mean, we're seeing AI generate fake news articles, create deep fakes that blur the lines between reality and fabrication. Algorithms are targeting us with personalized propaganda. It's a lot.
It really is. So in this world where we're constantly bombarded with information, with these competing narratives, how do we even begin to make sense of it all? How do we keep our heads above water?
That is the question.
Yeah. How do we avoid getting swept up in all the chaos?
Well, Goga would say it starts with becoming aware of something he calls automatic pilot.
Automatic pilot. Okay, so what do you mean by that exactly?
It's like, you know how sometimes you can drive home from work and not even remember the journey? You're kind of just there.
On autopilot.
Exactly. Goga's saying that in this day and age, with information overload and constant stimulation, it's easy to slip into that same kind of autopilot mode in our everyday lives. Especially, I think, when it comes to technology.
We're creatures of habit, right? It's easier to just fall back on those pre-programmed beliefs and reactions than to stop and actually think about things.
It takes effort to be mindful, and honestly, most of the time, we're just not.
And that can be dangerous, especially in the age of AI, when algorithms are learning our every move, every click, every like.
They're basically playing us like a piano.
Okay, so how do we break free? How do we hit the brakes on this autopilot express and actually start making more conscious choices?
Goga talks about the importance of pausing.
Pausing?
Yeah, like literally just hitting the pause button in your mind, even for a few seconds. We're so used to this constant flow of information, this go, go, go mentality, that we rarely, if ever, just stop.
So, how do we actually do that? Make it a habit? I mean, I'm all for a good pause, but it's easier said than done sometimes.
It is. It takes practice. But things like mindfulness exercises can be really helpful. Even something as simple as focusing on your breath for a few minutes a day. It sounds so basic, but
it can make a big difference.
It really can. The more you start paying attention to your internal landscape, your thoughts, your feelings, your bodily sensations, the easier it becomes to notice when you're slipping into that autopilot mode.
It's like building a muscle. The more we exercise that mindfulness muscle, the stronger it gets. Makes sense. But all this talk about autopilot and AI, it makes me wonder, can AI actually help us break free from these patterns? Or is it always going to be part of the problem?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, AI is a tool, right? And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill.
A double-edged sword.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And right now, it's kind of a mixed bag. Yes, AI can amplify our biases, keep us stuck in those echo chambers you were talking about earlier, but it can also be designed to do the opposite, to help us break free.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we use AI for good in this context? Give me an example.
Well, imagine an AI that's designed not just to predict what you'll click on, but to actually expand your horizons. Instead of serving up more of the same, it could curate content that challenges your assumptions, introduces you to different perspectives.
So it would be like having a personal AI assistant that's constantly pushing us to learn and grow.
Exactly. And be like, hey, I know you like reading about this, but have you considered this other viewpoint? It might surprise you.
That would be pretty amazing. It's like having an AI companion that's helping us become more well-rounded, more informed, more open-minded.
More conscious.
Exactly. It all comes back to consciousness. And that's really what Gorga's book is all about, isn't it? It's not about rejecting technology. It's about learning to use it in a way that helps us become more fully human.
100%. And the most important thing Goga emphasizes is that this isn't about predicting the future. It's about making conscious choices today, in this moment.
So we have agency.
We absolutely do. We're not powerless. The future of AI, it's not set in stone. It's being shaped right now by the choices we're making, the narratives we're embracing, the ways we're interacting with this technology.
That's actually quite empowering. We're not just along for the ride. We're actually co-creating the future.
We are. Every click, every swipe, every interaction is a vote for the kind of world we want to live in.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. The more conscious and intentional we are in our own lives, in our relationships, in our interactions with technology, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this incredible time of change and uncertainty. It's a dance, for sure, but it's a dance worth learning.
Beautifully said. And maybe, just maybe, if we can all learn to dance with AI gracefully, we can unlock a future where technology helps us become not just more efficient, but more compassionate, more connected, more fully human. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those hearts open.